Um, this is lecture 10 of the week 5 on school improvement. In this lecture, we will focus on the concept of school improvement programs with specific reference to effective school framework. So we will look at what kind of the programs different schools need for their improvement in areas where the schools have some sort of their needs. Based on those needs, based on those kind of requirements of the school, we will look at what kind of the programs a particular school needs to design and develop in order to improve students' learning. So after completing this particular lecture, at the end, we will be able to understand about the meaning of school improvement programs. What do you mean by a program? What do you mean by a school improvement program? How that program is linked with the concept of effective school framework. So in light of improving the student learning outcome. So in this lecture, we will look at how can we make sense of this school improvement programs. The question arises, when we look at this particular concept, school improvement program, so the first question comes to mind is, what does a school improvement program basically look for or looks like? When you look at this question, so many things come to your mind. First of all, one of the basic things which comes to your mind might be the point, that is how we can see a particular you know, improvement in students' learning outcomes. What kind of improvement we really interested in? What kind of the improvement in learning we are supposed to ensure? So for that, you will have to understand the context of your own school. Understanding concept of your own school is really very important. For example, you have a school and that operates within its particular resources, within the available resources, either human resources, material resources, or financial resources, and all kind of resources which all together provide a kind of environment in the school, and that environment of the school plays a vital role in students' learning. So, so when you look at these kind of the things, so you can understand what is missing in that environment. What do you really need to bring into school so that that environment of the school will become a conducive learning environment, and that conducive learning environment further uh, should contribute to improved learning outcomes of your students. So to understand this particular concept, so we need to understand some essential component of effective schools. What are those effective essential components of those effective schools are? How those components play a significant role in those effective schools? Why some schools are effective and some schools are not effective? So basically, when we will look at the programs, school improvement programs, we will look at a particular framework that is based on effective schools. Then we will be able to compare our own school and an effective school. What the essential components of an effective school are, and how we, in our own context, in our own school dynamics, what is missing? What components are missing in our school, and what are the essential components are there in effective school systems? So in this way, we will be able to identify some of the basic essential components of the effective schools, which we are not having in our own system. And based on that particular missing elements in our school, we will think about a particular program. So the program, how a particular kind of plan that enables us to bring those missing essential components into our school system, so that that school improvement program will help us to enhance our students' learning outcomes. Basically, in the literature, when you look at school improvement programs, uh, those are set of activities. Those school improvement programs are set of activities which support the state and local. State and local means those set of programs, those set of activities which must be in line with the national curriculum, national education policy, in line with national education policy, in line with local government education policy, in line with your own school uh, uh, needs and requirements, in line with your own education, system of education, the interest of education. As earlier we in previous classes we talked about different interests of education. So which interest of education do you serve? What kind of education you want to impart to the students? So in the light of that particular interest, you need to come up with set of activities which must support not only your local needs, but also that must be linked with the national education policy. So these set of programs, these set of activities are known as school improvement program. So these are not specific ones for all, but they vary from school to school, context to context, need-based activities which are required for those individual schools, which need those set of activities to improve their students' learning outcomes. So in the light of these particular meaning which a school improvement program carry, we can understand that school improvement programs are a set of activities which must be which must fulfill the local dynamics of the school, the school needs, which should cater the school needs, and which should be in line with the national education policy. Then those changes, then those efforts which you are trying to apply in your school, which you need some sort of efforts to bring those lackings, bring those missing elements into your school system through some reforms, through some improvements, through some changes in the existing resources. So that will enhance the purpose of all this is to um, enhance your students' learning. As you know, school improvement is a very complex phenomena, very complex situation, meaning school improvement is linked with basically enhancing students' learning outcomes. So to improve students' learning outcomes, here you will focus on those elements which are in your school can play a significant role to enhance students' learning directly or indirectly. For example, when you say the missing elements in your school which can play a significant role in improving students' learning, those could be, for example, a library. If your school has no library, then you need to install fully equipped library in your school, that will definitely enhance students' learning. So that is a direct link with the your students' learning outcome, or indirectly link with those resources which the students and teachers will use in their teaching and learning to improve their teaching and to improve their learning. So these kind of the activities, these kind of the essential components, essential elements of the schools which are missing in your school, you need to first identify those missing elements which have a significant role in improving students' learning. Therefore, school improvement programs are basically those set of activities which uh, which uh, which highlights those components, those missing essential components in your school, which are not there in your school system, but which are very important in the light of effective school framework. Is it clear to you, I guess, my audience? So what do you mean by a school improvement program? So school improvement program are basically designed to, and develop, those are designed and developed to fulfill your school to school base specific needs in the light of effective school framework, so that you should perform uh, near to those effective schools or equivalent to those effective school. So that is the basic purpose, and that is the basic meaning of the school improvement programs. Now come to this slide. Look at this slide in the light of school improvement programs are many types. There are many types of school improvement. There is no one single school improvement program. So these programs, again, you can understand, these programs depend upon the nature of your school, for which you are looking for some improvement, for which you are struggling to improve the system of your school, for which you are there to identify those missing elements in your school. Let's look at this example. For example, you have a school where there is no safe drinking water facility and a sanitation facility. If your school has these two important facilities which are not available, so this means that a school which has no safe drinking water facility as well as sanitation facility, these two facilities directly or indirectly affect the life of the people living in that particular environment, specifically the young children and the teachers who are there to get engaged with the learning in their respective domains. So, so that is one of the essential component of the effective school systems: safe drinking water and the sanitation facility. Similarly, and for that, you probably will think about how to provide these facilities to your school. Who will provide you? What kind of the activities you will do, which will help you to install these two particular missing elements in your school? So basically, you not only identify some missing elements, but you also plan how these missing elements, how these facilities which are not there in your school, which are not available in your school, so you will install in your school, so that those facilities which help students, those facilities which help teachers to create an environment that is attractive, that is inspiring for everyone, to create an environment that help learners to uh, you know uh, uh, improve their learning, help learners to engage with activities of learning. So, so these are very important um, uh, uh, components of the effective schools. which have a particular meaning in the context, which have a clear understanding of the idea that a schools, effective schools framework is one of the important guideline that helps policymakers, implementers, and school leaders, and community members and other stakeholders to think about uh, what kind of facilities, what kind of programs, what kind of the components which must be in their school so that their children would get engaged with learning powerfully. So this is how you can understand a school improvement program. Now, similarly, school improvement program depends on you, your school, and the needs of the learners. So as earlier I talked about, school improvement programs are different types. Their nature is different. Their necessity is different from school to school, from learner to learner, from teacher to teacher, from all those communities which have these school systems. So they have their own requirement, they have their own needs and demands, and based on that, looking at the interest of the education that they are providing, so they need a particular sort of program to improve their students' learning. Now, look at here we look at what is basically framework of the essential components of the effective school. What is the framework of the essential components of the effective school? So because when we say uh, a framework of effective schools means a guideline, a particular framework, a picture that shows clearly what kind of the things are necessary to for a school to become an effective school. So therefore, we will look at this particular framework of the essential components of effective schools. On one side, at the left side, you can see components. On the other side, you can see the definitions of these components. For example, the first component of an effective school framework is learning-centered leadership. What is the meaning of learning-centered leadership? Learning center means your focus is you as principal, as a school leader. Your focus in your school is to to build a vision. And as earlier we discussed vision, what is the meaning of vision? That is a you see you want to see your school at a certain level in future, in near future, in far future. So that vision, the vision, either you as a school principal, you have developed a shared vision, or that is a single or individual vision that depends upon the the interest of education that the school is serving. So when these principles with vision, a particular vision, a particular direction, they have come up with a particular sort of their priorities. So what to do at first, and what to do at second, and what to do at third level, and in order to create an environment where the students learning should be enhanced. And based on that, these school leaders, they come, they and sit together and with the teachers, and they I highlight those facilities. So how can we ensure in our school to create a learning environment that is based on learner centered, not teacher centered. So for that, you need to be collaborative, you need to be a shared leadership, you need to be engaged with the school level, classroom level, factors to focus on your teachers' professional development, improving their teaching skills, bringing all required resources to install in your school, train your teachers how to teach effectively in their classrooms. So this is not a simple, ensuring what is learning center teaching. Rather, learning center leadership is the leadership at the top level at the school as a principal, the leadership at this classroom level as a teacher. So you need to be very much conscious about what kind of resources do you need in your school to ensure this learning center guidelines, learning center leaders at classroom level, at school level should be there, so that they can help their students to enhance their learning, should enable their children to participate in their teaching learning activities, so that their teaching must be focused on the students learning rather than teacher centered. So this is the meaning, this is one of the component of the effective schools. If you look at this particular component and link with your own school, if your school has missing this particular element, you need to focus on this one. How to train your teachers, how to train your principal, so that those principals and those teachers should understand learning center leadership skills at school level, at classroom level, in order to ensure learning student center learning activities, student center student teaching in the classroom, so that the students should participate in their teaching, students should get engaged, students should collaborate, students should learn from each other, learn from teacher, and should share their learning with the teachers, so that there should be a collaborative learning environment is created in their classrooms and in the school. So this is one of the component. So you can understand what is the meaning of this component. Another second component is rigorous and aligned curriculum. As earlier we discussed thoroughly, there are different types of curriculum. So we have talked about very traditional curriculum, modern curriculum, and post-modern curriculum. So it depends upon what the effective school systems have a rigorous and aligned curriculum. What kind of the curriculum a effective school has? So do you have the same set of curriculum that is rigorous and aligned one or not? So you need to be very much reflective towards this particular component. And effective schools make deliberate efforts to align curricula with the state and district standards across grade levels, not only one, the generalized one, but across. If you have a school that is from ECD to secondary level, then you will have to look at that curricula in line with the national and then local education and needs, and then to every grade level, and then you will be able to align with every subject, and then you can see how that curricula ensures to impart that level of knowledge to your students. So this is yet another important dimension, important component of the effective school systems. Next comes to quality instruction. Again, we have discussed in previous classes three type of teaching approaches. One is teacher-centered approach to teaching, that is that has some limitations in the light of a very narrowly conceived interest of education, as a very traditional approach to teaching. And another is student-centered or learner-centered approach to teaching. At the another level is the critical creative pedagogies, that is a transformative pedagogy that looks at developing the skills of students at evaluating and creating level according to Bloom's taxonomy. So you need to be very reflective. You need to be very conscious about what kind of instruction in your school is, and what are the approaches, teaching approaches, instructional approaches, pedagogical approaches. These carry different meaning, although so they carry in their particular school system in effective schools what kind of pedagogical approaches they are using. So do you have the same set of approaches? If you have not that level of quality of instruction, then you need to develop some sort of programs which ensures this sort of lackings in your school. Similarly, when you look at personalized learning connections, so in effective schools, actors report strong connections between students and schools, as well as widely distributed meaningful relationships among students and adults in school. So yet another essential component of effective schools is personalized learning connections. So this means that if your school is focusing on every individual's learning needs, and they are their school and the school teachers and the whole system is very conscious about personalized learning connections, how to establish relationships between the teacher and student, among the students and other stakeholders like parents and community members and other teachers in the school, so as to develop an environment that is conducive, that is socially effective, in order to enhance individual learning connections, individually focusing on individual needs of the students. So again, this depends upon how you, as a planner, you can see this program, what kind of the programs which help you to ensure individualized learning connections to establish, personalized learning connections to establish in your school. Now come to another important component of the effective school framework, and that is culture of learning and professional behavior. So what kind of the culture do you have in your school, and what kind of the culture this effective school system frameworks talks about? So you need to study both. When you study your own culture of learning and professional behavior of the teacher, professional behavior of the principal, professional behavior of everyone attached in the school, how they behave, whether they are behaving in the same way as effective school systems have a particular culture to behave in a very professional manner or not. So based on that, you need to think about a program, you need to think about a plan, how that program helps you to create a culture, develop a culture of learning in your schools, focus on a professional behavioral conduct in your school. And finally, when you look at this particular component, systemic use of data, what kind of data you are using in your school, how effective high schools are data driven, and they have information rich environments. Do you have similar sort of information rich environment in your school? Do you have a system that is data driven? Means simply, are you talking about any sort of development that is based on an evidence, or you are just talking without any data, without any information rich resources? So you need to reflect on your own situation, and based on that, you will think about what kind of programs, do you need in your school so that those programs will help you to create these missing elements in your school. Again, one component is connections to external communities. That is yet another important component of the effective school systems. So because you are working in the market, you are there in the market, you have to look at your own performance and the performance of other schools. So you need to you need to be developed. You need to be connected with other schools. You need to be linked with parents. You need to linked with larger community in your school, out of your school, and then you will need to link with at a regional level and a national level, so that you must have a sustained connections between the school, parents, and larger community. If you have this sort of culture, if this sort of connection, interaction, and collaboration with your stakeholders, that's great. Otherwise, you need to look at this dimension, and you have to develop some programs, some set of activities which should ensure these sort of lackings. And finally, we will look at systematic performance accountability. And this is one of the most important area. What kind of system do you have about the accountability, performance accountability in your school? If a principal is there in school, what kind of the accountability systematic or system is there that ensures the performance accountability of the principal? And what kind of the activities that principal is engaged with to ensure performance accountability of the teachers and other staff? So that depends upon the system in your school, because when you have a particular sort of system that helps these school leaders to be responsible for their actions, for their decisions, for their every activity in the school, which are in line with their performance accountability or not. So, so you need to be very much conscious about if your school has this sort of situation, that's great. Otherwise, you will have to think about some programs, how those set of activities will help you to establish a systemic performance accountability system in your school. So with these all basic and most important ingredients of the effective school framework, you can understand how school improvement programs play a significant role in building your school as an improved school, as an effective school. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, comments, and suggestions, so you can come up with your own